Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful psychological journey that a lot of men go through. The flight from that feeling of youthful, limitless potential all the way to the grounded, necessary work of becoming a whole person. We're going to break it all down. So let's just jump right in with a question that gets to the absolute heart of this. You know that feeling when you're young, that sense of limitless possibility, like you're special? Well, what happens when that very feeling becomes the thing that prevents you from ever truly landing in your own life? What happens when it becomes a trap?
All right, first up, let's talk about the first stage of this whole journey, that glorious, absolutely intoxicating feeling of ascension. This is the golden boy phase, where everything seems possible and the world is just humming with promise.
Yeah, this experience is so common, so archetypal, that it actually has a name in Jungian psychology, the puer eternus, which translates to the eternal boy. This is the guy who, no matter how old he gets, just resists the boring, messy, but necessary limitations of adult life. He wants to stay pure, uncommitted, and just forever in that state of rising potential.
And you see this archetype pop up all over the place, right? You've got the obvious ones, like Peter Pan, the boy who literally wouldn't grow up. But we also see it in these more subtle modern ways. The spiritual seeker who's always trying to transcend earthly problems, or the Don Juan type who can never commit because he's chasing some impossible heavenly perfection.
And this feeling, this sense of being special, of having just a little bit of gold inside you, man, it can send you flying to some really high altitudes. Just like the poet Robertson Jeffers suggests here, sometimes even a tiny drop of that feeling can feel like too much, making you never, ever want to come back down to earth.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This high-flying act has a serious shadow side. For all its glory, living up there in the air comes with some profound, hidden dangers. And this is where that beautiful potential starts to feel like a trap.
Okay, so the first major pitfall here is something you might not expect. It's a deep and honestly surprising passivity. The man who lives in the clouds can become weirdly inert in the real world, which is a huge contrast to the traditional idea of masculine action.
And here's where it really shows up, in his most important relationships. He might avoid the difficult conversations, just letting his partner carry all the emotional weight. He might retreat into a sulk instead of actually talking about what's hurting him. He's basically outsourcing the active work of love and life to everyone else. All right, peril number 2. All that time spent flying high creates a dangerous naivete. And look, we're not talking about some charming innocence here. This is a willful refusal to see the dark side of the world, of other people, and, most importantly, of himself. And this is where that naivete really bites back. It becomes like a magnet for trouble. He might think his good intentions will protect him from betrayal. He might fail to protect what's important because he has no boundaries. And you know what? The universe has a funny way of correcting that imbalance. It tends to bring about the very betrayal he refuses to see as possible. And maybe the most tragic, personal cost of living way up in the air is a profound emotional numbness, a total disconnect from his own heart. It's this classic description. His mind is active, maybe even fiery, but his chest, the place where you feel things, is just cold. When his partner asks, "Do you love me?" he might look inside and find nothing. And that forces him to either fake an emotion or just stay silent, which, as you can imagine, creates a huge chasm in his relationships. But this isn't the end of the story. This is not just a tragedy. There is a corrective journey, a necessary fall from those intoxicating heights. This is the descent, the journey into what the source material calls the kitchen work of the soul. All the messy, unglamorous, but absolutely essential tasks of becoming a whole person. And just look at the contrast between these two movements. Ascension is all about spirit, height, and gold. Descent is about soul, depth, and ashes. Now, one isn't better than the other. They are two essential halves of a complete life. The goal isn't to fly forever, it's to learn how to move between the sky and the ground. The ancient Greeks knew all about this. They had a word for it, katabasis. It means a journey downward, and it's often experienced as that terrifying feeling of the floor just dropping out from under your life. It can feel like failure, like humiliation or depression. But it's the crucial ingredient for what we call soul making. And this descent isn't some abstract idea, right? It happens through real, concrete, and often super painful life events. It's the divorce, the job loss, the health crisis.
It's that moment you stop being a special person and you just become another human being, forced to finally confront your own limitations and your own failures.
So, this whole journey down forces you to face a central, really difficult question, one that the poet Robert Frost just nails perfectly here. After the fall, after all the grand dreams have turned to ashes, what do you do? What do you make of a life that has been diminished?
Well, the answer to Frost's question lies right there, at the bottom of the fall. So let's dig into the wisdom you can find in the depths, in the ashes, and in the grief that the high flyer was trying so hard to avoid. D.H. Lawrence, he really understood this. He knew this isn't a quick fix. Healing the soul isn't like fixing a car. It is a slow, patient process. It requires what he calls a difficult repentance, a real, true turning away from the old mistakes, and a deep commitment to tending those wounds.
And one of the key discoveries in this whole process is something the source material calls learning to shudder. What is that? It's the awakening of empathy. It's the ability to finally, truly feel the fragility of life, your own and everyone else's. It's the absolute antidote to the cold, unfeeling numbness of the high-altitude flyer.
So all of this, the fall, the ashes, the grief, it all culminates in a kind of final initiation into a more grounded self. It starts with accepting the servant father, that earthy, darker, grounded side of masculinity. Then it's about increasing your tolerance for reality, for eating dust. And finally, it means truly learning how to grieve, to feel the full weight of your wounds without trying to explain them away.
And that leaves us with one final thought to really consider for our own lives. Our culture celebrates ascension, right? The constant upward climb. But if flying high is the easy part, and staying up there is the goal, what essential part of our humanity, our soul, and our capacity for real love do we lose by never learning the necessary art of coming down?